The television flickered with a burst of static, filling the living room with an abrasive screech that froze Clara mid-step. Her coffee cup trembled in her hands. Then dead silence. A voice disembodied and chilling cut through the stillness. "They're already here." Every electronic device pulsed in sync, screens turning black, before displaying a wave-like pulse of alien glyphs. Clara stared, paralyzed, as her apartment dimmed. Outside, car alarms erupted like a chorus of dread. Sirens howled in the distance. A low vibration rolled through the ground, like something massive had shifted beneath the city. News anchors stammered across channels, words scrambled by a foreign frequency. Then came the transmission. A guttural message layered with patterns no human throat could form. But Clara heard it clearly inside her head. "We've been waiting for you." Her heart pounded, throat dry. This wasn't contact. This was invasion. And she knew nothing in the world would ever be the same again. Clara didn't remember sitting down. Her knees simply gave out beneath her, and suddenly she was crouched on the floor, surrounded by the high-pitched hum of failing devices. Her phone buzzed, screen cracked, displaying one line of text: "Evacuate." That was it. No sender. No timestamp. Just a command. Across the room, her cat yowled and darted beneath the couch, as another low tremor rattled the walls. The city outside had become a war zone of noise and confusion. Distant explosions, the whir of helicopters, the static-laced wail of emergency broadcasts trying and failing to pierce the chaos. Clara clutched her head. "This can't be real," she whispered. But deep down, it was all too real. She could feel something watching. Not just from above, but within. As if her thoughts were no longer her own. A presence had entered the world. And it had entered her. Emergency sirens began to fade, not into silence, but into something stranger. Tones that warped and echoed unnaturally, reshaping into a pattern. Clara's heart raced. Her mind raced faster. There was a rhythm to the sound. It wasn't noise, it was communication. She crawled toward the window, peering out just in time to see the sky split. Not literally, but it may as well have. A series of lights bled through the clouds in triangular formations. Perfect, deliberate, moving like no known aircraft. Around her, other buildings shimmered with digital noise, like the very code of reality was glitching. The transmission returned, now forming almost sentences. "You are seen. You are chosen." Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't humanity discovering aliens. This was them revealing themselves, at their time, on their terms. Clara's apartment began to shift. Not physically, but perceptually. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. Time felt elastic. She stood slowly, the voice now repeating in her head like a forgotten dream surfacing. "We know what you are." The words didn't make sense, but they felt true. Memories that weren't hers flickered into view, starfields she'd never seen, a language she'd never spoken, a battle that hadn't happened yet. She stumbled to her bookshelf, grabbed a leather-bound journal her mother had left behind, full of cryptic symbols and sketches she had never understood. But now, they matched the glyphs on the screen. Clara's breath came in sharp gasps. Her entire life had been leading to this moment. And she never knew. The world hadn't just changed. It had always been this way. She had just never seen it. Outside, panic turned to terror. Civilians flooded the streets, fleeing a threat they couldn't name, while police and military vehicles swarmed intersections. Clara stood on her balcony, eyes fixed skyward. The lights had grown larger. Closer. Not. Each triangular craft shimmered with a surface like liquid metal, silently hovering above the skyline. Then one moved, fast. It darted forward with a pulse of light that shattered every window in the block. Clara ducked, arms over her head, glass raining around her. The silence afterward was deafening. From the craft a final signal pulsed, this one not garbled, but precise. "Prepare." Then it vanished. Clara, trembling, realized this was not the start of contact. It was the start of war. The morning after the first wave wasn't calm. It was the eye of a gathering storm. Clara stood in her childhood bedroom, untouched for years, the dust now lit by the fractured sunlight cutting through cracked blinds. She hadn't meant to come back here, but something called her, something old and buried. Her mother's voice echoed in memory. "One day you'll understand." She reached for an old family photo on the shelf. Everyone smiled in the frame, but now Clara looked for secrets in their eyes. The transmission hadn't returned, but the silence was louder. Governments denied everything, media spun chaos into distraction, and those who heard the message truly heard it, were left wandering in a daze. Clara wasn't the only one changed. But unlike the rest, she wasn't just confused. She was beginning to remember. Not dreams. Not visions. Memories. Of things she had never lived. Of places she had never been. Something in her blood was awakening. She opened the closet with trembling hands. Inside, sealed in an old shoebox, was a bundle of letters tied with a red ribbon. Her mother's handwriting, precise, almost ritualistic. Each letter spoke of them in cryptic metaphors. They come in silence and we carry them in our silence. At first, Clara dismissed them as delusions. But now, the symbols in the margins, the repeated warnings about the signal, made sense. Her mother hadn't been paranoid. She had known. Clara scanned a page that mentioned a name she had never heard. Project Hekara. Government documents? A cult? Or something worse? As she flipped to the final letter, a tiny key slipped out from between the pages, cold, ornate, and engraved with the same glyph that had pulsed across her TV screen. Her pulse quickened. These weren't just messages. They were instructions. That night, Clara met with Jonah, her closest friend and once a defense analyst. They sat inside his remote cabin, a flickering oil lamp between them. His face was drawn, unshaven, eyes rimmed red. He had seen something too. "It's not just tech," Jonah said, sliding over a tablet displaying classified satellite data. "This isn't new. We've been mapping them for years." He tapped a heat map filled with clusters. They're buried under the oceans, inside mountain ranges, dormant structures activated after the transmission. Clara's hands trembled. "You knew?" Jonah looked away. "Not enough to stop it. Only enough to be scared." Then he leaned in. "You need to understand. They're not here to invade. They're here to complete something we started." Clara froze. "What do you mean?" Jonah's voice lowered. "You're not just caught in this. You're part of it." Rain lashed the windows as Clara sat alone in her car, engine idling on the cliffside road overlooking the ocean. The radio buzzed with static, then clicked. "You are seen," said the voice again. Calm, reassuring, terrifying. She shut it off. Her mother's letters had described this voice. "It comes when you resist." Clara felt her chest tighten. She looked at the key again, now warm to the touch, then toward the ocean. Out there beneath the waves was one of the buried sites Jonah had shown her. The location had matched one of her childhood sketches, a spiral carved in the margins of her old journals. Coincidence? Or memory? She stepped out into the rain, the wind biting. From the cliff's edge, she could see something far below the surface. Not a ship, but a light swirling slowly like an ancient eye opening. Watching her. Clara stood in the hallway of her late mother's abandoned research lab, deep beneath a forgotten government facility. The key had led her here, through sealed doors and biometric locks she somehow knew how to bypass. Her footsteps echoed as she moved deeper, walls lined with old monitors and tapes humming to life. She found a central chamber where a holographic display hovered, blueprints not of machines, but of human anatomy interwoven with alien circuitry. In the center, a name, Clara Hayden. Her own name. Shock froze her. This place wasn't researching them. It was researching her. A video activated, a projection of her mother, younger and scared. "Clara, if you're seeing this, it means the cycle is beginning again. You are the key. The room dimmed as her mother's voice broke. They're not just coming. They've always been here, inside you. The desert wind howled as Clara approached the perimeter of an off-grid military installation, guided by coordinates Jonah had decrypted. Cloaked in a dust-stained jacket and fear, she crouched behind rusted fences topped with sensors. This place wasn't on any map, but she knew it had everything to do with Project Hekara. Through her binoculars she saw it, massive subterranean vents, satellite uplinks, armored guards with no insignias. These weren't soldiers. These were something else. As night fell, a convoy rolled in, black trucks escorting a sleek container marked with alien glyphs. Clara's breath caught. Whatever they were hiding, they were moving it fast. Then, her earpiece crackled. Jonah's voice panicked. Clara, you need to leave. Now. They've activated tracking protocols. They know you're close. She whispered. Too late. Because one of the guards had just turned, staring directly at her through infrared lenses, without hesitation. Captured. The room was white, blinding, sterile, silent. Clara sat bound to a chair of smooth alloy that vibrated subtly beneath her. No chains, no cuffs, yet she couldn't move. Across from her stood a man in a dark suit, face unreadable, eyes scanning a translucent tablet. You're not supposed to be this far ahead, he said. Clara frowned. Ahead of what? He ignored her. You triggered the archive prematurely. The Hekara files were meant to surface post-transition. She strained against invisible restraints. What transition? The man stepped forward, face inches from hers. You were designed to forget. His hand hovered above her chest. But your blood remembered. As he touched her skin, a burning glyph appeared on her collarbone, pulsing. The man's eyes flickered, literally, and for a split second, she saw the truth. He wasn't human. He never had been. A blinding pulse. Clara woke up gasping inside a moving armored vehicle, wrists unbound now, seated across from a woman in military fatigues. You were almost reprogrammed, the woman said flatly. You're lucky I intercepted the signal. Clara stared at her. Who are you? The woman gave a half smile. Someone who remembers what we were before the lies. She tapped the side of her head. They've rewritten history, Clara. Generations of truth buried under false flags and alien treaties. Clara leaned in. Are you saying we've been collaborating? The woman's smile faded. They didn't invade us, we invited them. Decades ago. Technology, knowledge, at a cost. Outside the window, the desert blurred. And the worst part? She continued. You're not the only hybrid, just the first one waking up. Clara sat in silence as a new fear took hold. Not of them, but of us. They arrived at an abandoned underground hangar, massive, rusted, carved into a desert canyon wall. Inside, old spacecrafts rested beneath tarps, long dormant, humming faintly. Clara's guide peeled one tarp away, revealing a vessel covered in the same glyphs etched on her skin. This was your father's, she said. Clara reeled. He died in a car accident. The woman shook her head. No, he was taken after he'd defected. He tried to stop the merge. Shock warred with clarity as Clara placed her hand on the vessel. It responded. Lights flickered on. Systems awakened. This is impossible, she whispered. The ship's interface lit up, projecting a 3D map of Earth with zones marked in red. What are those? Clara asked. The soldier's voice was grave. Impact zones. Phase 2 is imminent. Clara turned toward her. How do we stop it? The soldier stared back. We don't, we expose it. Night fell again, and the desert air turned electric. Clara stood atop the hangar, watching a satellite uplink pulse to life. It was time. Jonah's voice crackled over comms. Are you sure about this? She nodded, though no one could see. They've already rewritten the past. We're rewriting the truth. The signal launched. Across secure networks, the Hekara files began to upload. Every experiment, every treaty, every hybrid record. Clara knew it would cause chaos, but it would also wake others. The truth wouldn't save humanity, but it might give them a fighting chance. From above, a low hum began, growing louder. She looked up. A massive triangular ship emerged from behind the clouds, lights like burning stars. "It's begun," she said quietly. The files were loose. The world would know. But so would the enemy. And they were coming. Fast. Clara sat by the flickering console deep inside the hangar, her face illuminated by the pulsing alien script. The data stream had slowed. Something was interfering. "We've been compromised," Jonah's voice came through. "Someone's rerouting the signal." Clara's stomach turned. "From where?" A pause. "From inside your location." Her blood ran cold. She spun around. Nothing. The soldier who had guided her, the woman who saved her, was gone. In her place stood a figure cloaked in a projection field, flickering to reveal the same woman, only now her eyes glowed faintly blue. "You should have stayed in the dark," she said flatly. Clara backed away. "Why?" The agent stepped forward, voice devoid of emotion. "Because you weren't meant to wake up." Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a weapon. Not human, not alien. Both. A hybrid device. Just like her. The blast came fast. Clara dove behind a console, sparks raining down as the hybrid weapon shattered steel. "I didn't want this," the woman said, circling slowly, her voice layered with a synthetic tone. "You were supposed to lead them quietly." Clara gritted her teeth, crawling through narrow ducts beneath the floor. "Lead them where?" she shouted. A bitter laugh echoed. "To compliance. Peace through control. You were the bridge, Clara. But now you're just noise." Clara emerged behind a console and yanked a cable from the wall. The lights flickered, the air shimmered, and the projection field around her attacker destabilized. For the first time, Clara saw the truth. The woman's face shifted, moment by moment, part human, part alien, completely unstable. "I was made for this," she hissed. Clara stood, defiant. So was I. The fight was brutal. Clara wasn't trained, but instinct took over. She moved faster than she should have, her body reacting before thought. Her fingers found pressure points, her legs struck with inhuman strength. The hybrid stumbled, surprised. "They unlocked you," she spat, wiping greenish-black blood from her mouth. "You don't even know what you are." Clara grabbed the fallen weapon and aimed. "No, but I'm starting to." The air around them pulsed as energy built. The hybrid laughed bitterly. "You think you've won? We're everywhere. Your friend Jonah? You never asked how he knew so much, did you?" Clara's finger froze on the trigger. "Liar, ask him who recruited him." The lights died completely. The room plunged into darkness. Then the woman was gone. Just the echo of her last words. "You're surrounded by shadows, and you never saw them coming." Clara drove through the desert night, wind howling past shattered windows. Her hands gripped the wheel tightly, knuckles pale. Jonah answered after the third call. "Where are you?" she asked, breathless. Silence. Then, "Somewhere safe." She pushed. "Did you know she was a hybrid?" More silence. Then, carefully, "Yes." Rage bloomed in her chest. "You let me trust her." Jonah sighed. "You needed to see for yourself. That's how the awakening works. We can't give answers. You have to pull them out." Clara's voice cracked. "So this whole time, you were one of them?" A long pause. "No, but I was trained by one." Her head spun. Everything felt like rot. "I don't know who I am anymore." Jonah's voice softened. "That's the point. Find out. Then decide if the world deserves the truth." The call ended. Ahead the horizon burned with distant light. A new target. A new betrayal. She arrived at a decommissioned observatory, the kind built for stars, but now aimed at shadows. Inside, Satellites hummed, and data streamed across ancient monitors. Alone, Clara accessed the terminal. Jonah's files were already uploaded. She opened them. Faces filled the screen. Scientists, officers, civilians. All hybrids. Some marked. Some unaware. One of them, her. The document was titled, Integration Directive 9EA. It had been signed decades ago. By nations. By corporations. By people Clara had once believed were human. She leaned against the wall, the weight crushing her. This wasn't just infiltration. It was design. She saw her mother's signature on one document. Initiated under ethical duress. Clara whispered, "You knew." Everything collapsed inside her. Every truth had teeth. Every memory bled. But in the final file, one phrase burned brighter than the rest. Subject alpha. Active. Response unstable. Ascension probability 89%. She didn't feel chosen. She felt used. Clara stepped into the ruins of what had once been a thriving town, now deserted, scorched, and silent. Satellite footage had shown a sudden blackout. Locals vanished. No signs of a fight. Just absence. She moved past charred vehicles and collapsed storefronts until she reached the center. There stood a monument, her family crest carved in stone, far older than any generation she knew. At its base, glyphs pulsed faintly. Recognition surged through her. Her dreams had shown her this place, but not like this. Not ruined. A deep tremor shook the ground beneath her feet. She knelt and touched the stone. It responded, not electronically, but biologically. A pulse echoed through her fingers, up her arm, and into her chest. The glyphs glowed, and the ground cracked open. A chamber below, long buried, revealed itself. This wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a message from her bloodline. A door into who she really was. The chamber was circular, its walls lined with mirrors that didn't reflect her image, only scenes from other times, other places. Clara turned slowly, breath held. One vision showed her mother standing inside this very room, placing something into a glowing core. Another showed her father, alive, fleeing soldiers who bled light instead of blood. Then finally, Clara herself, standing among stars, surrounded by beings that knelt before her. She staggered back, overwhelmed. "These aren't memories," she whispered. "They're prophecies." A low tone filled the chamber. In the center, a pedestal rose. On it, a stone key embedded in crystal, the same glyph from her collarbone etched on its face. Her hand hovered, then closed around it. The moment she touched it, her body seized. Visions flooded her. War. Ascension. Collapse. Rebirth. And one constant. Her. Always her. Not a witness. A trigger. She screamed as her past and future collided. Jonah arrived minutes later, drawn by a signal Clara hadn't realized she'd sent. "You opened it," he said, his voice small in the vast chamber. Clara turned, changed. Her skin shimmered faintly in the low light. "It opened me," she replied. Jonah stared. "You saw it, didn't you? The whole design?" She nodded. "We're the result of generations of manipulation. A breeding program disguised as diplomacy. They didn't just partner with us. They shaped us." Jonah's face darkened. "And now what?" She held out the key. "Now we choose if we finish what they started, or if we end it." Jonah stepped forward. "If we use this tech, we become them." Clara's gaze burned. "If we don't, they erase us." She wasn't asking anymore. She was declaring. Legacy wasn't just something inherited. It was something wielded. And Clara was ready to use it. They emerged from the chamber, into twilight. The air felt different. Charged. Satellites above had begun to reposition, tracking not just alien signals, but Clara herself. A massive data spike lit up defense grids across the world. She was a beacon now. They wouldn't let her remain free. Jonah handed her a small, modified transmitter. Once you activate it, there's no turning back. Every hidden node will detect it. Clara stared at the horizon. Then let them. She pressed the device. A wave of energy radiated outward. Lights in the sky blinked, as if responding. In the distance, thunder rolled, though there were no clouds. Above them, a shadow moved, massive and slow. Not a ship. A city. Suspended. Cloaked. Preparing. Jonah whispered. What did you call? Clara's answer came without hesitation. The other side of the legacy. The ones who didn't want compliance. Resistance wasn't coming. It was already here. The wind picked up, carrying a strange hum, like language, but not spoken. Clara could feel it behind her eyes. Her skin buzzed with heat. Across the world, those like her would feel it too. Hybrids, half awakened, lost in denial. Now, they would know. The signal wasn't an attack. It was a call. A unifying thread, igniting across bloodlines. The Ascendants had returned, not to rule, but to reclaim what had been splintered. Clara felt the burden settle on her shoulders. She wasn't the hero. She was the doorway. Her mother's voice echoed through her thoughts. Legacy is the memory of purpose. Jonah stood beside her silent. No plan, no weapon could undo what had been set in motion. Above them the sky split wide, not with violence, but with revelation. Clara's eyes glowed. It's not about winning anymore, she whispered. It's about remembering who we were, before they made us forget. The command center was buried beneath ice, hidden within a decommissioned Arctic station, long forgotten by the world above. Clara and Jonah stood in front of an ancient interface, unlike any human technology, a circular console made of obsidian-like stone, humming with soft violet light. This is the convergence node, Jonah said. It can broadcast to every hybrid system across the globe. Clara hesitated. And if I activate it, you link them, give them clarity, power, but the cost. He trailed off. Clara stared into the shifting light, her reflection flickering between human and something more. I lose myself, she finished. Jonah nodded. And maybe us with you. The node pulsed, responding to her presence. It knew her. It had always known her. She reached out, then stopped. Every instinct screamed both yes and no. What if I give them too much? Jonah's answer was quiet. Then they'll follow you anyway. The world reacted before Clara made a choice. Satellites scrambled, data spiked, and governments moved into lockdown. Global networks were no longer secure. Every system tied to hybrid lineage flickered online, unprompted. Someone else had begun activation. Clara spun toward Jonah. You said I was the first. He swallowed hard. I thought you were. Across the Arctic sky, drones darkened the horizon, an unmarked fleet deploying in silence. They're coming for the node, Jonah said grimly. Clara turned back to the console. If they get here, they'll shut it down. End all of it. He nodded. They'll bury it again. Bury you again. Clara stepped forward. Then, we activate now. Alarms blared across the station. The final countdown had started, not by her hand, but by necessity. One path led to control. The other, collapse. And both ran through her. They split up. Jonah moved to secure the perimeter while Clara entered the inner sanctum, where the final activation lever rested inside a chamber of light. It wasn't mechanical. It was biological. The walls pulsed like living tissue, responding to her energy. As she stepped inside, the glyph on her collarbone ignited, mirrored by symbols on the floor. Her presence completed a circuit centuries in the making. The voices returned, not from the past, but from within. Ascend or remain broken, they whispered. But do not wait. She gritted her teeth. What does it cost? The answer came in waves of feeling, not words, memory, identity, self. If she continued, she would become something new, part of the network, part of the message. But if she didn't, everything ended. Clara placed her hand on the living console. Her pulse matched its rhythm. It was no longer a choice. It was a becoming. The moment Clara activated the node, the station shook with a roar, not from weaponry, but from awakening. All across the globe, hybrid zones flared to life. Dormant beings stirred. Memories flooded minds long sealed. Clara stood suspended in the chamber's center, arms outstretched, her body caught between light and shadow. Jonah burst into the room, watching as her feet left the ground. "Clara!" he called. But she didn't answer. Her mind stretched beyond the limits of skin and time. She saw through satellites, walked through memory corridors, heard the voices of others just like her, crying out in recognition. She wasn't leading a rebellion. She was unlocking a truth too long buried. Her scream tore through the station, half agony, half rebirth. The glyphs burst into white fire. And then, silence. Clara dropped to her knees. Alive, but changed, and carrying the entire world's awakening inside her. Clara stepped out onto the Arctic ice, barefoot, glowing faintly under the aurora. The air crackled. She looked up. The alien fleet had stopped. Not descending, just watching. All over the world reports came in. Hybrids emerging, monuments lighting, encrypted messages playing across abandoned channels. Humanity was no longer hidden. Clara turned to Jonah. "They're waiting to see who we become now." He nodded. "And you?" She took a breath. "I'm not the same, but I'm still me." She closed her eyes. Somewhere in her mind voices still whispered. But now she could choose to listen, or not. Power hadn't consumed her. It had revealed her. She opened her palm. The key, now inert, crumbled into dust. The legacy was no longer in stone or signal. It was in choice. "Let's go," she said. "We've got a world to wake up." And for the first time, Clara felt like she was finally walking forward, not into destiny, but into freedom. The world didn't erupt in flames. It cracked in silence. Clara watched the newsfeed spiral, governments issuing frantic denials, satellites losing alignment, civilian networks flooded with truths too large to comprehend. The integration directive, the glyph records, the hybrid census, all public now. Cities didn't riot. They froze. Trust collapsed first. Then order. Clara stood in a safe house near the Swiss border, eyes glued to a screen that now showed her own face, captured in blurry surveillance footage, labeled Subject Alpha. Jonah sat nearby, silent. "They're going to paint me as the villain," she said. Jonah replied, "Only because you told the truth before they were ready." Clara exhaled slowly. Then maybe readiness was always the lie. Outside the wind howled. Inside, the world held its breath. The revelation had broken the illusion. Now came the waiting. Would the world reject the truth, or rise to meet it? From bunkers to street corners, something had shifted. Around the globe, hybrids began gathering, not in protest but in presence. Silent, unignorable. Clara walked through a small European village, the silence broken only by church bells and whispers. People watched her, some with awe, others with fear. Children stared, seeing something they didn't understand, yet somehow trusted. An older woman stepped forward and offered Clara a locket. "My daughter had the mark," she whispered. "I thought it was a curse. Now I wonder if it was a calling." Clara's hand trembled as she accepted the gift. She wasn't leading a movement. She had become the proof. Not of alien power, but of human resilience. The fallout wasn't war. It was reckoning. Clara whispered, "We are the legacy, and it's ours now." The old woman smiled. "Then don't let them take it again." In the heart of a burned-out data center, Clara stood among servers turned tombstones, rows of machines once used to monitor, suppress, rewrite. Now, they were ruins. She pressed her hand against one scorched unit. "This is where they tried to erase us," she said. Jonah behind her nodded. "This is where we rewrite them." He handed her a shard of crystal tech, harmless now, but still humming faintly with encoded memory. Clara slotted it into a backup terminal. A stream of unfiltered records poured out, files never meant to be seen. Births, experiments, sacrifices, names. It wasn't justice, but it was acknowledgement. Clara looked around the dead machines and whispered, "No more hiding." The screen blinked once, then displayed one phrase, "Data liberation complete." They had pulled truth from the ashes, and truth now exposed would no longer kneel. She stood before the world, uninvited, unfiltered. A makeshift broadcast went live across former military satellites and hijacked networks. No graphics, no editing, just Clara, standing in an abandoned cathedral turned signal hub. Her voice rang steady. "You've seen the truth, you've felt it, some will fight it, some will fear it, but the legacy was never alien. It was always ours, twisted, buried, but never gone." Her hand touched the glyph still etched on her collarbone. "You are not accidents, you are not broken, you were made to adapt, and now you decide what that means." Jonah adjusted the signal boost in the background. Clara's eyes didn't waver. "They will come again, from above, from within. But we are awake now, and we choose what we become." She ended the stream without farewell. The truth didn't need closure. It needed courage. Snow fell quietly as Clara walked alone along a frozen riverbank, the world behind her unraveling and rebuilding in equal measure. Her boots left no imprint, the ice smooth as glass. She didn't know if she had won anything. There was no victory, just continuation. The alien fleet still hovered in low orbit, ever present. Humanity had not been saved. It had been exposed. And now it stood naked before the stars. Clara stopped at the edge of the water, stared at her reflection, no longer just hers. She whispered, "The truth has a price." And in the stillness, the river whispered back, not in words, but in echoes. Behind her, a child watched, curious, afraid, but not running. That was the change. Clara turned to walk again, the child following at a distance. The war was far from over. But for the first time, it wasn't being fought in the shadows. It had stepped into the light.